serious and credible allegations emerged that senior officials at DHS had engaged in efforts to politicize intelligence assessments and sought to downplay the threat posed by white supremacist violence. It may seem that the whistleblower has some credibility problems. So here we go again, indulging the Democrats' dream that they'll find the holy grail of scandals that finally gets rid of Trump.
There you see the House Intelligence Committee reacting to a whistleblower complaint from Brian Murphy, a top Homeland Security official who accused Trump appointees of manipulating intelligence to help Trump in 2020. Murphy retired from the agency Friday after more than 2 decades of public service, and he joins us now for his first network interview. Thank you for coming this morning. As I said, you spent more than 2 decades as a public servant. You're a Republican who voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Why did you become a whistleblower?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I think I became a whistleblower because when I arrived at DHS in 2018, from the outset, everything that I had stood for, all the, finding objective truth when I was in the FBI and serving in the Marines and serving the American public, was quickly told to me that's no longer acceptable. And, I
How
heard,
so?
I heard on the intake there that, it was I have a credibility problem, and I want to explain some of that right now. So in 2018, I issued my first whistleblower complaint. It was only 6 months after I arrived. I think that's often missed. From the outset, there were 3 things that I was told that we would look to manipulate intelligence on and bend the truth about. And I told them up front that I wasn't going to do it.
What are the 3 things?
So the 3 things were Russian disinformation as it related to the president. The second was the southwest border. And the third was white supremacy. Those were 3 issues that I was, there was intense pressure to try to take intelligence and fit a political narrative. And right from the outset, I had a target on my back because that objective truth.
So take us inside let's take one example. Take the issue of the Russian disinformation, as you say. How would that work? What were you finding? What were they trying to get you to say?
Sure. So, it's out now in the public domain, but I'll just go back a little bit to give an example. In 2020, late 2019, early 2020, it was highly classified that President Putin had ordered all of the Russian services to denigrate the Democratic candidates and support then President Trump. So there was a push on across government at the senior levels, the cabinet officials, to do everything possible to stifle anything, to get anything out to the American public or to our overseers in Congress.
About that interference.
About that interference. They did not want the American public to know that the Russians were supporting Trump and denigrating the what would soon be President Biden.
How about downplaying the threat of white supremacists?
Absolutely. After Charlottesville, it became a third rail issue, if you would, within the department to talk about white supremacy in any meaningful way. I disagreed with that. I made that known to my superiors. And like I said, I issued 2 complaints, 2 IG complaints detailing what was happening in the department well before 2020 occurred. And even when 2020 came along, I think the whistleblower complaint that I'm better known for, I had no intention for that to become public. That was leaked by somebody. I don't know who did it. It was my intent to work within the system to protect classified information. That's what the whistleblower process is set up for, and that was my intent. As
you know, your critics are saying you do have a credibility problem. Chad Wolf, who was the head of Homeland Security, acting head under President Trump, said your claims are patently false. He went on to say this.
I removed or reassigned Mr. Murphy at the beginning of August for a very specific reason. I had received credible allegations that he abused his position, he abused his authority, and possibly violated numerous legal requirements when he personally directed the collection of information on U.S. journalists.
He's talking about the collection of information during the Portland riots. Your response?
Sure. So I appreciate the question. That's absolutely not the case. I've sworn under oath twice now, to Congress and to the Inspector General's office, and I'm prepared to appear at any time to tell you unequivocally at no time was I aware or direct anybody in my organization to collect information on journalists. What did happen was Portland was a very chaotic situation. We were collecting information, open source information available, people put things out on Twitter, Facebook, etc., primarily about violence. We weren't collecting information on reporters, we weren't collecting information on First Amendment protesters. It was about violence And in there, we have a very structured way to collect information about leaked information or whether it's classified or not. A lot of oversight went into it. And, I understand why, at the time, the media reacted the way they did, because anything coming out of Chad Wolf's mouth, quite frankly, and many members of the department at that time, was false, and people did not trust them. There was a war against the media, and I wasn't going to be a part of that. And that's why, when the moment they had their opportunity, they took their shot.
But this week, the Inspector General did put out a report that said the Customs and Border Patrol had lookouts placed on journalists during the migrant crisis in 2018 and 2019, and you were in charge of intelligence then.
Sure. I don't know anything about what Customs and Border Patrol was doing with respect to journalists. I can tell you right now that if I had become aware of it, I would have followed a pattern that I did before. And unfortunately, I'm not surprised that they were doing that. It's shameful that they did that. If I believe the Inspector General's report, and if that had ever come across my radar, I would have quickly reported to the Inspector General, as well as told my bosses that it was unlawful and unethical.
You managed to make it through the Trump administration. What was the pressure like inside?
It was intense. When I left the FBI, I'm an apolitical person in the sense of I don't let politics get in front of my work. I had never experienced that personally at the FBI. But when I got to DHS, it was all about politics. And, I made it, as you noted, I was not an anti-Trumper. I voted for the guy in 2016. I am a Republican. But that doesn't come in front of my obligation to use the truth as a North Star, to follow where it goes. And in the intelligence profession, that's the sacred part of it, is to put out the truth regardless of what it says.
President Trump is making moves to run again, perhaps in 2024. In your view, what would that mean for the intelligence community and the country?
I think it would be a disaster. I think he has denigrated, he's put out the intelligence community. He's puts out disinformation. And that's an existential threat to democracy, and he is one of the best at putting it out and hurting this country. As I was saying before to you, I have the opportunity to go work for a company called Logically. That's my next step in life. I'm very appreciative of it, where we are going to go combat disinformation at scale across the globe. We're not the thought police, but disinformation is a deliberative campaign to put out false information, often for nefarious reasons.
How do you explain the relative success of the strategy?
The strategy in
spreading disinformation.
So disinformation is a slow-moving threat that is in front of us. It's on social media. It's not readily understood by a lot of people. I think it's conflated with a lot of political talk. But in reality, disinformation is the type of threat that if we do not do something about it, if we don't build resiliency within this country so people know and take the scrutiny and the time to evaluate the sources of information, it polarizes us. Political polarization in this country is at the worst it's ever been. And the Director of National Intelligence put out a report a few weeks ago. I encourage the American public to read it. It's a forecast of what 2044 will look like. And disinformation and polarization is one of the #1 threats they articulate. And we are no stranger to that in the United States.
Brian Murphy, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.